Welcome, everyone. We don't have a huge crowd here tonight, but we have a great crowd, and I'm so excited to be here. My name is Kelly, and I am from Kelly's Cottage Garden in Park Rapids, Minnesota. And I have not done a lot of speaking in my life, so you just have to bear with me. I love succulent lovers, I love speaking, and I might ramble a little bit. But first, I wanted to tell you just a little bit about myself. I get a little choked up sometimes, you guys. Okay, I am actually a hobby gone wild greenhouse where I started when my kids were probably, I don't know, probably back in 1993. They were like 3, 10, and 12 years old. And I kind of wanted to have a little greenhouse. And so somehow, through so many different things, I ended up with a beautiful greenhouse and started working super hard, just trying to create things that were beautiful, sell them, and just, try to be an expert at greenhouse growing right from the beginning. So anyway, that's me in the younger days, and I actually ended up on the front of a magazine called The Northern Woman, and it was so exciting, and it kind of got me motivated to keep on going. So that was kind of phase one in my life. And then this is what I am today. I have a beautiful greenhouse in Park Rapids, Minnesota, Kelly's Cottage Garden. I don't know, has anybody ever been there? I don't know. Okay, 2 right there. And I gotta tell you, it's, like I said earlier, it's a hobby gone wild. And I started my business because I loved watching Martha Stewart. The Martha Stewart show, the Martha Stewart magazine, and her edition that she had, the hanging moss baskets. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, somebody has got to start making these moss baskets. I mean, are you kidding me? When you go to a greenhouse, everything is so boring. You have your geraniums and your lobelia in your green plastic pot, and why? Why can't we do something else? And so I would go from greenhouse to greenhouse and asking, because I was a crazy greenhouse person back in the day. Why don't you guys have a moss basket? And they're like, Kelly, there's no way you're ever going to sell it. You have too many plants. It's too hard. You mix things up, and you can't mix shade with sun, and you just can't do it. And I was like, okay. And then another year would come on, and I'd be like, okay, how about this one? Come to my house. Let me show you. And the same thing would happen. Well, anyway, somehow some magic appeared, and I ended up having my own business, like I said previously, Kelly's Cottage Garden. And I actually make moss baskets, and I actually sell them. So that's pretty cool. This is what I'm talking about right here. That's kind of it was my first passion, let's just say. Does anybody here ever make like a moss basket? Does anybody? Okay. It's kind of, it was a trial and error in the beginning, and then all of a sudden what happened is I had one small greenhouse, people started ordering them, and they're like, okay, I'd like to order 10 I am having a graduation party, and I'd like to do this. And they'd walk into my lower greenhouse, and it'd be just a complete disaster, so we had to add on. And anyway, that's kind of where the moss basket comes from. There's a couple that are hanging on my porch, and anyway, the years have gone by, and I want to say I started in 2004, and in about 2018, Garden Gate magazine called me, and they were like, oh my gosh, your moss baskets are so beautiful at Chase on the Lake in Walker. We'd love to feature them in our magazine. So, oh my gosh, I was in another one. So that was super exciting for me because, my road hasn't been easy. So anyway, that's kind of my history, is the moss basket. And then I want to say in about 2015 or maybe 14, the succulent craze kind of came along. And that was like a whole new wave when you're a greenhouse owner of ordering plants and getting things in. The beauty of the succulents is that when they come into my greenhouse, like when the box comes, I open it up, and guess what? They look amazing. Like, you can't see this probably, but this came today. This, you gotta, pass it around or whatever, but this is a hens and chicks from a grower in Michigan that somehow actually Brittany found, and they have the most beautiful plants. But what happens when I open this box is I'm like, okay, I gotta make a wreath. I gotta do something right now, and I can create something and it looks good right from the very beginning. So one succulent kind of led to another and led to another. Because when you're also in a greenhouse, you don't get 25, you probably get 50, or you can get 75, you know. And I had to start creating projects. And I guess that's kind of what I've been doing ever since. I've been creating lots of different arrangements. And I just have to put this down for 1 second. Have you guys, I'm gonna hold this up. This is, Jewel, these are in the, is it called the Arboretum? What is that called? The conservatory. These are hanging in the conservatory, and Jewel from the Arboretum had contacted me early this winter, maybe last December, and said, Kelly, I saw your work and I would love for you to create some succulent spheres to show during our spring flower show. And I was like, oh my gosh, how am I ever gonna do that because my greenhouse isn't on? So anyway, to make that happen, I kind of converted my garage into a greenhouse, and so these are just beautiful, and they're hanging here, and I think they're probably gonna stay here now because they just look so pretty, and I love for people to be able to see them. Not everybody gets to come up to Park Rapids, you know, I'm kind of far, but what I wanna do is just kind of share some of the different things. I wonder if I can just set that on the table like this. Let's see. Can you guys see that? Isn't that pretty? I just kind of want to share the basic 101 of succulents with you. And, you know, if you have questions or want to share maybe a project that you've done, that would be awesome. So anyway, this chat is strategies for creating artful succulent arrangements. And the first step, you have to decide what you want to create. There's so many things out there. There's so many things you can make. Some things are overwhelming, some things are easy. You know, succulents are, you know, there's succulents that are great, there's succulents that aren't as great. It's the first thing, first decide what it is you want to create. And I just want to show you some of the things that I've created over the years. That is a succulent sphere that we did out of a really funky wrought iron sphere. And yeah, he looks amazing. This is another a succulent sphere that we did. And basically these are growing this is about July in Minnesota. So it doesn't start out like that, it takes time, but that is, I'm gonna say that's July. And if you want a smaller one, you can just kind of pare it down, you know, with your spheres, and you just make a little smaller guy. This is somebody actually had one of the spheres hanging in their bathroom. And, you know, that's great. You know, the only thing is, you know, you got to make sure that you're planting it with the correct succulents for the shade, because some succulents like sun and some like shade. So you got to do a little bit of studying on that. We have a succulent wreath here, and these are just made out of beautiful different echeverias, lots of different colors and textures. You know, when we're succulent fanatics, one of the things we like to do is collect as many as we possibly can. Has anyone here ever tried to done some propagation of succulents? Okay, good. Do you have an easy time? No? I didn't do it right. Well, you know, it's like the first thing that succulent people say is that succulents are easy, and they are easy, but they take time. So just because you got, you know, the first time that you purchased your succulents and you brought them home and they all fizzled out, or maybe you worried about them too much, doesn't mean that the next go around couldn't be better. But I do have to say, from a greenhouse perspective, it's a lot easier for me to propagate a succulent than it is for you, because I mean, it's kind of easy, but it takes time. I mean, we're talking about 2 to 3 months sometimes before you're going to see the roots start to grow. And sometimes by that time you're like, okay, now it's fall, done. Yeah, I'm sick of looking at this, so let's give it up. But you know, I'm just going to stress to be patient and keep trying, because it's so great, you know, when you finally get things going. How do you define them? Well, you know, succulents are, I can't define it like in the scientific way, but what I'm going to say is they get their moisture, they retain their moisture in their leaves, so they don't have to be watered very often. So, you know, when you plant your succulent, like if you were going to let it sit on a shelf for like 4 weeks, what you're going to find is that the bottom layer of leaves start to kind of drip off, and then but they keep feeding themselves through the leaf system that they have. Yeah. In this succulent wreath, absolutely. What I do when it comes to watering is I take my wreath form and I soak it with water, with the soaker nozzle or whatever it is that you have, or even with the watering can. Let it completely get wet and let the water drip out of it completely, and then put it where I'm going to be enjoying it, whether it's on the door, on a door frame, or as a centerpiece. And when it comes to like succulent wreaths or any kind of a living wreath, it's just really important that you, every time you take it down, you hang it up the same way so that it kind of grows that way, because it kind of grows towards the light. Well, what I always tell customers is it just depends on your green thumb, because some people can make things grow and they have sunrooms and they can last for years and years and years. And I've seen some people, some of the people's work. But like for me, I'm gonna say that if I didn't have grow lights and everything and I brought that into my house, it's gonna look good until November. And then it's gonna start to just kind of get weaker and weaker probably every month until, you know, actually it's gonna get weak. By December, it's not really gonna look that great. And what I'm gonna do is move it probably somewhere where I don't have to look at it, but it's still gonna go dormant. So in March, bring that wreath out again and start watering it, put it in the sun, and it will come back. So just because a succulent looks sad doesn't mean that it's dying. If you know, with succulents, when they start to stretch is when you give them a chop. You know, when it comes to like these, I'll see all these echeverias, like the Pearl von Norenberg and all these, those guys, if you chop the heads off, they're gonna have babies. It's kind of cool. And if you leave that little rosette like in a little box, after a few weeks, it's gonna grow roots. I have a few of those today. So propagation is interesting. Go ahead. If the leaves are brown and slimy, but if they're brown and crispy, they're dry. But if they're falling off, but they're still they still have they're a little wet. Okay, if they're crispy, dry, but if they're wet, too much water. And if they're yellow, I'm gonna say too much water. Yep, I'm gonna say too much water on yellow. The only way you really know that it's dry is with the leaves shriveling up. And I'm probably gonna get way off track here, but like string of pearls, I don't know how many of you guys have string of pearls. That's our one succulent. It's kind of a string of that really actually wants a lot of water, and it will tell you when it's thirsty because the little peas will shrivel up. So that's a sign. The echeverias, like all these beautiful guys, I mean, they can go months without water. They really can. Those are, if you are shopping for succulents, I would say that most of those, I mean, of course, there's gonna be a hard one once in a while, but those are the plants that you're gonna get the most beauty and color out of with the least amount of worry. Okay. And then we have, I do a huge amount of succulent dish gardens, and I'm sure you guys do dish gardens. You know, you have small pots, large pots. Now we have the pots, you know, the pots with the heads are kind of in right now, where you build the big head. One thing that I want to, I want to use my hands, but okay. So when I'm building like a succulent arrangement, you see that gray pot up there. One thing that I do that might be different than other people sometimes, and maybe not, is I mound the soil a little bit. So when I instead of having the soil go straight up to the pot, we kind of mound it a little bit so that so it forms like a peak. And then I lightly water all of that soil, and then I start putting the succulents in with, well, I don't know if I have it. I don't know if any of you guys have a diblet, or must not, I don't know where it is, like a scissors, just even a scissors, and just kind of dig little tiny holes and then carefully plug your succulents in. And it just really, it makes your dish gardens look amazing right off the bat. It's, you know, I mean, give it a shot, you know, a couple times. Sometimes I've built my mounds a little too high, and that's, you know, not good, but it really does work to just just looks good, instant gratification. I also do that with some of my, you know, geranium arrangements or large pots also. Does anybody have any questions about dish gardens? Go ahead.
Where do
Well, this is step one. This is a plug, so it's coming from, coming in a tray of 72 from a greenhouse. So this is like what greenhouses get. And some of the greenhouses I know in the area, will just sell succulents right out of the plug tray. And, sometimes they're cheaper. But you gotta, I'm not sure where you could find those, but I bet there's, some places, especially around here, you guys have a lot of greenhouses, so that's kind of fun to be able to shop around. I mean, when it comes to succulents, I guess I would like to add that you can buy succulents from wonderful small greenhouses like mine or like Brittany's, or beautiful like Tangletown, Tonkadale. There's so many different places. Or you know what? Sometimes Walmart has good succulents too. I mean, the sky's the limit. Amazon, I just did a little Amazon search because I'm doing something coming up. You can buy like 50 succulents on Amazon now, just in little containers, and the reviews are pretty darn good. So, I mean, it's fun to be a succulent collector because they're easily accessible now. But I don't want to discourage you from going out to the fun greenhouses because, that's where it's at for sure. But what was that? During the summer? Yes. I mean, most of these, yes, all of these things basically for me, I create to be outside in the summer. I don't have a lot of succulents that I like to bring in and have as a house plant, but I know that there are a lot of people that do, and there's a lot of shade succulents. The Haworthias and some of the aloes love the shade. I know the strings love the shade, like string of pearls, string of bananas, string of turtles. All those guys love shade, so you can definitely create for inside, but I'm just kind of an outside. I'm basing out outside. I actually have it in my own house, like a succulent window box. So when like if you have a window box, like an iron window box that you put the moss in between. And the thing that I love about this the most is it sits in the hottest part of my house and I never have to water it. So it always looks good and I never have to water it. And it's just, I've done it for so many years and I was actually thinking that maybe I should change it up, but it's like, we love our flowers and we love our watering every single day, but it's nice to have a break in one part of the house. So, it's something to think about. In vertical gardens, they're everywhere too. I mean, you can make a vertical garden. I think that the larger vertical garden there we made at the greenhouse, just following like a YouTube video. And then the other vertical garden is just, I'm pretty sure some of the garden centers would sell the empty garden, and then you just place your succulents in to that garden and let it grow. Probably let it root in for about 30 days, or not 30 days. Let's just say 15 days, let it sit, and then slowly bring it up.
So do you put foam core in that, or
Well, what I like in this guy right here, chicken wire is the base. So there's chicken wire holding it in. In the other arrangement, that is just squares. And what we have and use for absolutely everything is sphagnum moss. So that is this right here. It's just sphagnum moss. Everybody should own at least one bale. Mine is Moster Lee, long fiber sphagnum moss, 3.5 bale. It's super expensive now. I don't know what the deal is, but I have a shed that is absolutely filled with bales of moss. So if you ever come and see me, I'll give you some for sure. But this is what I use for absolutely everything. So yeah, in that vertical garden, you're gonna want a moss. Moss is kind of like the glue to hold the flowers together. So that is what that does. Yeah. SPHAGNUM, I think. I have it in my bottom slide, I'll show you, okay. The vertical garden is the same thing kind of as the wreath. You just kind of give it a really good water and then let the water drip through, and then you're gonna hang up the wreath the same way every time also. And I mean, sometimes in the vertical gardens, depending on the size, you don't like in this vertical garden right here, you can see like up on the top, you see that big guy kind of going in. It's kind of nice, like when something starts to take over, if you maybe trim it out and add something else, because even though it's so fun to see that thriving succulent that looks so great, when it takes over your whole look, then it kind of defeats the purpose of having the multicolor. So don't be afraid to cut things back a little bit. I think that's really something that I've learned over the years, because we feel so good when everything looks amazing. You know what, we've done succulent birdhouses in the past, and I see these, like, they're on the market now, right, as merchandise, and isn't that beautiful? That's probably in July, and that is on a lakeside deck that actually gets just perfect sun, and it just thrives every year. And then vintage bird cages. I don't know, when you're antiquing out at the antique shops or garage sailing, those bird cages are amazing with succulents, just to fill. And again, and in this bird cage, we're going to be using like the sphagnum moss to hold everything together. There's another one right there. And then the succulent driftwood centerpiece, that is actually here. We did those. I brought those in, I think, in January, and that is, my dad actually cut out a piece of driftwood, and it has just a very small amount of soil in it. And, it just makes a beautiful centerpiece. I'm gonna say it's gonna be a centerpiece for outside, though. I feel like if it's inside, it could get leggy, and it does not have a lot of soil medium growing. So, definitely an outdoor thing. Let's see. And this is a cutie. That's actually my granddaughter a couple years ago, but that's just an old and vintage truck. They've kind of been in lately. And all we did was just put succulents in it, and it just kind of went to town. And it's, the customers come in and they see that color, and it's totally attracting, and especially you got to find the right dump trucks. Right here, this is like an old toolbox that we found and just filled that up. And oh my God, that was just so fun. I mean, I think the thing about these darn succulents is they give you a new reason to go shopping. It's like, okay, like right now, the McCoy pottery is kind of in again, I'm hearing. And so I've been going to some shops lately and buying pink McCoy pots, thinking that they're just going to be a huge hit. I don't know what's going on in my head, but it just gets you going, it gets you shopping.
So in the toolbox, do you put dirt in there too?
Yeah, well, I do. Yes, I put I'll build it up with moss, but then I'll put the dirt, and I'll show you my dirt at the end of this, so you guys can see, what I use. But yeah, and sometimes, if you have a huge piece, just putting some old pots in the bottom of it just to lighten it up a little bit, is a great idea, because it doesn't always have to be so heavy. And then you've got this cute little metal toolbox. So if you wanted to, you could put little magnets on it, and you could decorate it up. So, this is just the beginning of a piece. So next I'm going to, does anybody have any questions first? Okay, go ahead.
With things like this, as well as the dish arrangements, how do you handle drainage?
Drainage, definitely. If we can have a hole in it, we want one. Absolutely. It's the more drainage, the better. But like when I'm talking about the McCoy pottery or whatever, some of these beautiful pieces or a cute little dish that you have, what I do is you just know that there's no drainage hole in that, and so you just kind of give it a little drink and then walk away and just leave it alone. I know my brother has bought a glass cutter, and so he's been cutting lots of different bottles, beautiful bottles, and they started planting succulents in those, and they look gorgeous. So yes, you need a drip hole, but if you don't have a hole, just be mindful of the watering. And the other thing is, if you don't have the drainage hole, make sure it doesn't get poured rain. If it's pouring rain out, move it out of the way, because that will drown the succulents. And if they were going to sit in the water for a couple days, then they're going to, well, probably a week, that's not going to be good for them. So, okay, now on to, how many of you guys have ever made like a succulent pumpkin? Chris, okay. Have you guys seen them at least? No? Okay. Well, succulent pumpkins are something that it's a beautiful centerpiece that you can use all of your succulents that you've had. Let's just say that you have this beautiful sphere and it's September and the weather's gotten cool. What's going to happen is these succulents their color is going to come out, and they're just going to get this bright, vibrant color. Well, what you can do is take your little scissors, and you can even see like in this sphere right here, and I don't want to pick it off, but I'm going to. You can just take this little this little baby right here. And you can, well, let me back it up first. Okay, you have a pumpkin. Okay, you bought like a beautiful pumpkin somewhere. What you're gonna do is take like some spray adhesive glue and spray the top of your pumpkin. You're not cutting into it. Spray it with the adhesive glue, and then take your long fiber sphagnum moss and build a little nest on the top of your pumpkin, okay? And then the next step is take your succulent cuttings and you just start gluing them to the pumpkins or gourds or squash. And you will end up with just a beautiful arrangement. I mean, you can see this one. I actually do classes of this in my greenhouse. So people come and we make succulent pumpkins all fall, from September through actually November. And again, basically it's spray glue, a pumpkin, some moss, and then just succulent cuttings. And you can buy large pumpkins, but what I recommend is get the smaller ones because you don't really, need like a huge pumpkin arrangement in your house, just a little baby. So yeah. Here's a little white pumpkin. Those are so cute. And then this is a mini succulent wreath. Sometimes I get into this about right now, like the little grapevine wreaths. It's kind of before the soil season hits. So I've actually had a couple classes where it's just like maybe an 8-inch grapevine wreath. And then again, you've got the moss and then you just put the cuttings on. And the cuttings will actually root in to your project. So, there's no doubt about it. So you could actually take the succulents from your pumpkin or from your wreath and plant them into soil and then keep them for next year. It's just, I'm gonna say again, it depends on your green thumb a little bit. Some people works great. Some people are like, oh God, I'm done. I'm over it. This is a larger wreath right here. And I had so much fun making this. And some people, when we're cutting the succulents, they're just like, oh my God, how can you cut that? But it's gonna grow and it just looks so pretty. You guys are probably, on Pinterest, they have the succulent Christmas tree. And I am not a big fan of the succulent Christmas tree because when it turns into November, I am done with succulents until right now. But this is like the little vessel that you use to do the succulent Christmas tree, and it's kind of the same thing. Just put the glue or the spray glue, the sphagnum moss all over this tree, and then just use the succulent cuttings. And isn't that pretty? And then next to it is a larger pumpkin. And then lastly, there's my Ryobi battery operated glue gun. Works great for all of these projects. It's like the best thing ever. How many people have one of those? Anybody? Oh my gosh, it's a good thing. It's a really good thing. Okay, like where are we on time? Can I keep going? 2 minutes? Oh geez. Okay, I can go over a little. Okay. I use the glue gun is what I take the hot glue gun and I glue the succulent cuttings onto the pumpkin or onto the Christmas tree. So that's what makes the succulent stick. And they like it. They're okay. That's the best part about it. So anyway, okay, I'm just going to quick go into this. After we decide what we're going to make, we're going to pick out our succulents for our projects. And there's, like I said earlier, there's so many succulents that you can pick out, and I'll just kind of go through this really quickly. You want to be looking for different colors and textures. If I'm a succulent shopper, I'm not going to get two of the same thing ever, and go to different places because everybody's good at different succulents. So, but definitely look at the colors and textures. There's just, and this arrangement is just amazing. The color. String of pearls to me is like a must-have. It's kind of the spill in your arrangement, so it's going to kind of just hang down. And string of pearls comes in green or variegated, green and white, which is absolutely gorgeous. And it's a great plant. Just one. And another one that I'm going to say is that both of these sedums, I'm not going to pronounce them, but if you see them in the garden center, they are both great. And when you buy this yellow, I'm going to go the Tokyo Sun, which is the Tokyo Sun would be the furthest one. One plant can go into 10 different projects. So what I do is dump that plant out of the pot, kind of squeeze it together, and then just take little pieces and do that same trick with the scissors and whatever, and just kind of sew it into the soil. Because all you need is a little piece of it. You don't need a ton of it. You just want a little touch of that yellow. So remember that one plant goes a long ways. My number one favorite succulent of all times is the Aeonium kiwi, no matter what. It's just got the pink and the green, and it just looks pretty all the time. And sitting next to it is the calico kitten, which is a great trailer. And again, one calico kitten, just propagate, you know it's gonna go. My other one, Pearl von Norenberg, best purple. It's the best. With Pearl von Norenberg, again, you can cut the whole top off, like in the fall. And then when you're gonna maybe put your succulents into dormancy, you're gonna find little babies on that little stalk coming up. It's for sure. I call these packies, and these guys really hold water in their leaves. They're really fat little leaves. They need very little water. And they just kind of add like just a little, like a lighter texture to them. This is the one that I brought today, and if you guys want to come up here and check it out, this is a chick charm, and there's lots of chick charms on the market right now, and they come in different colors and textures, and they are zone 3, so they're supposed to come up in our gardens. I don't know for sure. I tried some of mine last year. I don't know, we'll see what happens, but it's a definite great pop of color for different projects, especially in that gold color. And then here's some more, so many. Echeveria, the rose and Dick's pink are both great succulents. They're larger. They're more of the thrill succulent. Put them in the middle. I have both of those, and you guys will find them down here too. You've probably seen the Calianchoe tomatosa, the chocolate soldier, and it also comes in the panda. It's that darker furry leaves. And then the Yananese crested succulent, it's just kind of like just a big lump. And what you could do actually is, I don't know if you guys, I don't know if you can see the spheres after this, to go take a look at them, because you'll see a lot of those plants in the spheres. Because, these are the plants that I actually have. This Aeonian Zork top is the black, fat little flower. And if you cut him again, he's going to branch out all sorts of little babies. But, during the season, we don't really want to chop him too much. And then this little guy, Indicum variegated Yananese. It comes, when you first purchase it, it is beautiful, just a cool looking plant. But after about a month, it kind of gets stringy, and I don't know, it's not as pretty. It's really good in the beginning, very unique looking. This this lifesaver plant it's a cactus. I don't know if any of you guys have ever had that, but it really does happen. When you take a look at that guy in July, he is going to have a bloom that looks exactly like that. It's very cool. Okay, I'm just going to just show you. So this sphere right here is this right here, okay? So if anybody wanted to make a sphere, if you were like, okay, I need to try this, and I really encourage you to do it because it's very rewarding and it's not that hard. This is like a large sphere, or if you wanted to do something a little smaller with things that you have around the house, just think this is like 2 small wire baskets right here, and you just kind of wire them together right here. And all you're going to do is you're going to put a little piece of plastic at the very bottom of this sphere, and then start building your sides with your long fiber sphagnum moss that's soaking in water next to you. So you build a little bit of moss right here, then you're going to take your succulent, baby, and put it in, and then just cover that with moss. And it's kind of like, I'm going to say it's like building a puzzle, putting a puzzle together. You take a look at it, and it's kind of like, okay, I think I need something in pink over here. And you just keep going until it's full. It's so rewarding, and I can't say enough about exploring with sphagnum moss, because you have to at least try it. But the other thing I want to say is, when you are trying it, make sure that you are relaxed, in a good mood. You have a lot of time and a lot of succulents and things right at your fingertips, because this is not something you do when you're in a hurry. I've had people tell me, Kelly, why don't you make like 50 of those? You could sell them so easy, because if I made 50 of them, it would look terrible and nobody'd want to buy them. You really have to be, in the mood to do the work. Right here, This is like a succulent wreath form. I mean, there's two types of wreath forms that you can purchase. This one is, it's already filled with moss, so that's great. So what I'm gonna do with this guy is I'm gonna drop it in water and let it kind of puff up, and then we're gonna use our scissors or whatever to place our succulents into this wreath. This is not gonna be my first choice for sure, because this to me is hard. I'd rather work with the long fiber sphagnum moss in the bucket and then just build a wreath like using this guy. I don't have any new ones right now, so this is kind of an oldie. But actually, all we do with this is I take this top off right here. What I'm gonna do is put this on a table that's really easy to work with and build a canal in here, like around the sides, on the bottom, and in the middle with sphagnum moss. And then I'm gonna put dirt on the inside of that canal. And then I'm gonna take my back and I'm gonna put that on. And then I'm gonna flip the wreath over and then I'm gonna start adding the plants. So whether it's succulents or, you could make a beautiful pansy wreath. Living wreaths are actually something, that they're kind of fun to make other things other than succulents, but all you're doing then is just kind of digging in to your moss and placing your succulent plug. So it's not that hard. It really isn't. It's maybe take a class or, at least give one thing a try. I would love for everybody that came here to just at least, give things just a little try. Okay. This is a soil that I use for everything. It's a greenhouse soil. The thing that I tell my customers is that it's nice, sometimes to pick up a huge bag of soil so you just have it. Then you don't have to be running around getting potting mix and knowing what the best soil is. But I really love this. This soil is like, contains a combination of Canadian sphagnum peat moss, pine bark, and perlite. And it's good, and it's good for succulents. I am not a big fan of the succulent soils that you can purchase. I find that in my projects, when I use the sandier soil, when I'm talking about spraying everything and then putting it together, what happens is the soil just kind of, it's like sand, kind of falls apart. So there. And this is the sphagnum moss. If you want to take a picture of it or whatever, but this is great. A lot of the garden centers, I think, will have it maybe like in a smaller bale. You don't need a huge bale, but if you had to buy, if that was your only option, I would buy it and just keep it, it lasts for years and years. And lastly, I just wanted to say thank you. This is me and the Spheres. And I don't know if any of you guys ever watch Prairie Yard and Garden. It's a PBS channel, but a couple years ago I did Creating Succulent Gardens on the Prairie Yard and Garden, and they actually came to the greenhouse and they recorded it, and it's whatever. But it's kind of fun to see all the different succulents, and you can actually see the greenhouse that I'm actually talking about. So I would, encourage you to just take a look at that. And I don't know if anybody's ever interested in coming up, but I am doing classes, in March 15th, I have a succulent sphere. April 15th, we're doing a succulent wreath class, and then I actually am a vendor at a junk market in Fargo, and I do lots of different things. So, go to the website, you can Facebook message me or email me, or maybe if you guys are taking a road trip up, you can come and visit. And I do have people that actually come from cities. It's kind of cool. So does anybody have any other questions? Yeah?
Where did you get this soil?
Well, you could ask at your garden center. It's probably not going to be something that's out in the front, although it might be. Maybe you could maybe Google it online. I get it like in pallets, so you can get it at Kelly's Cottage Garden. And it's about $24 a bag. I know, it's hard, but it's kind of, I always encourage people, to just maybe buy like a huge bag because it's just so much easier. And it's actually lightweight. That's the other thing. When you're buying, soil for your succulents, make sure that when you're picking up that bag, it's lightweight and not at all, it hasn't been in the rain or whatever, anything like that. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm sure I missed something.